Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. What a life. Hearing and chanting. What a life. What a life. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada. What a life. So, today we begin midday reading and chanting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. It's not a matter of memorizing. It's a matter of relishing, tasting, appreciating, loving Krishna and everything in relationship with Krishna. Hearing about Krishna, remembering Krishna, serving Krishna, Krishna's devotees, Krishna. It's not about, I'm going to study this and I'm going to learn something. Well, yes, all knowledge is here. But really, at least for me, it's about relishing. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I mean, I've read Bhagavatam so many times. I've heard Bhagavatam so many times. It's always fresh and new because of the taste. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. The holy name, I don't know how many times I've said the holy names. It's been 50 years of Hare Krishna, and it's always new and fresh. It'll go away. Thank you. Goodbye. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Oh, but there's so much suffering in the world. People are suffering so much. Why don't you do something to help people who are suffering? Why don't you, serving God, why don't you help people? Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. They're suffering for lack of Krishna consciousness. That's why they're suffering. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Ram, Hare. The best thing that I can do to help anyone is to myself absorb myself in Krishna consciousness. That's the best thing I can do to help anybody. Because that's the solution to all the problems. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. This morning there was a very small little, it looked like a little baby cricket, and somehow he'd gotten into the shower. So I noticed him while I was showering, and I felt bad for him. What's he going to do there? I mean, he has water, but there's no food. It's warm because it's a little cold outside, but what kind of future does he have there? He's just going to die. I'll go in a couple of days, it'll be shriveled up, brown, little dried up piece of dust that used to be his body. Hare Krishna. So I thought, let me put him outside. So I got a little cloth and he topped on the cloth, and then I put him outside. So I helped him. He was suffering. I helped him. But did I really? I mean, he's still just a cricket, So instead of being in the house, he's outside. Well, I helped him. Well, how did I help him? He's still a cricket. It didn't help him. Well, I did tell him Hare Krishna. I did do that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So helping people, how is it going to help? Jesus also, he taught like that. He said, if a man is hungry and you give him a fish to eat, they were into fish. You give him a fish to eat. So, okay, he had a meal. But then he's going to be hungry again. But if you teach him how to fish, then he can take care of himself. So the idea is not fishing. We don't like fishing so much. But the idea is that give something the person can use to help themselves. And that's Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram. Which is what Prabhupada has done for anyone who will take shelter, is he has shown how, he's taught how to go to Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By himself being a perfect example of a pure devotee of Krishna. And never forgetting Krishna, always chanting Hare Krishna, always trying to help other people to become Krishna conscious, talking about Krishna, teaching about Krishna, everything Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. So we really want to help people. And he talked about that in that essay I read, Who's Crazy? There was a section there that when you want to help people, you see the suffering in the world, you want to help, then to become Krishna conscious, then you can help. Hare Krishna, and the danger is if it's something other than Krishna, then you get pulled into whatever it is. You get sucked in. Hare Krishna. Like there's a wreck, a shipwreck, and you're not exactly in the lifeboat, and you try to reach out, and they pull you in. You have to get in the lifeboat of Krishna consciousness. We really want to help anybody. What is it? You save yourself in such a way that others get some benefit. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. So a couple more mantras and then Srimad-Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Plus, people are suffering and they're burdened down with all kinds of anxieties and worries, and they want this and they can't have it, and they have whatever it is they have, they're afraid they're going to lose it, and so they're always caught in fear and anxiety of so many things. So when they see someone who's actually happy and blissful, it actually gives them hope. They're very attracted. Wow, a smiling face. It's really smiling too. Wow, a peaceful person. What is it that they have? What is it? It's Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare. So Lord Chaitanya says, wherever you go, whoever you meet, simply tell them about Krishna or Krishna's instructions. Share with them something, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Big programs are there. That's good. Prabhupada wanted a big organized effort to spread Krishna consciousness, distribute the books, to have communities and temples and worship that would attract people. What was it? It was sitting in Mayapur. They had a hut there at one time. I remember seeing it. It was a rather big hut. It was like a tent thing. It was rather big. But it was still just, a thatched roof with some poles holding it up. The other buildings, they were just beginning construction, so there was really nothing there. Just this hut. And Prabhupada was sitting with some of the disciples, and he said, so we're very happy and content sitting here like this. We can stay like this. We don't have a problem. And Krishna, Hare Krishna. He said, but people won't come just for a simple little hut. They won't come. So we have to make a big whoop-de-doo. I didn't use that word, whoop-de-doo. We have to make something big and impressive so the people will come, and then they have some opportunity to hear something. Hare Krishna. That was his strategy, his preaching strategy. To make a big display of some sort. And then they'll come because, it's interesting. And then when they're there, they have an opportunity to hear something. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. And that's really the reason for a holy place also, is not just to do some puja or to take a bath in the river or even just to eat a little something. There might be devotees there or someone there, an advanced devotee. You can get some mercy. That's really the reason to go to temples, to holy places, is because there might be devotee there that can take shelter. Hare Krishna can give some good instruction, enliven in Krishna consciousness. That's the real reason. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And that was Prabhupada's strategy. Make a big display so they'll be attracted. And then when they come, you try to give them something Krishna conscious. You give them something Krishna conscious. You make the big display, big whatever. Hare Krishna, Prabhupada's strategy. Hare Krishna. So, I'm attached to the old books, This is, what one is this? Simply because these are the books I'm familiar with. These are the ones I've studied for years and years and years. I know they have grammatical and other types of errors in them. That's okay. I just have some attraction for them personally, the old books. This is copyright 1972. Hare Krishna, Dynapon printing. So Prabhupada says here, he says, To Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, my spiritual master, on the 26th annual ceremony of his disappearance day. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. Prabhupada was so happy, so proud to be able to offer to his spiritual master, who had given him that direct instruction. If ever you get money, print books, especially in English. So, we read the preface. We must know the present need of human society. What is that need? Human society is no longer bounded by geographical limits to particular countries or communities. Human society is broader than in the Middle Ages, and the world tendency is toward one state, or one human society. The ideals of spiritual communism, according to Srimad-Bhagavatam, are based more or less on the oneness of the entire human society, nay, on the entire energy of living beings. The need is felt by great thinkers to make this a successful ideology. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need in human society. It begins, therefore, with the aphorism of Vedanta philosophy, Janmad Yasayata, to establish the ideal of a common cause. Human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion. It has made rapid progress in the field of material comforts, education, economic development throughout the entire world. But there is a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large, and therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. There is need of a clue as to how humanity can become one in peace, friendship, and prosperity with a common cause. Srimad-Bhagavatam will fill this need, for it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society. Srimad-Bhagavatam should be introduced also in the schools and colleges, for it is recommended by the great student devotee Prahlad Maharaj in order to change the demonic face of society. Sanskrit here from the Bhagavatam 7th Canto by Prahlad. Komara charit pragno dharman bhagavatan iha durlabam manusam janma tad ap yadruvam artadam. Disparity in human society is due to lack of principles in a godless civilization. There is God, or the Almighty One, from whom everything emanates, by whom everything is maintained, and in whom everything is merged to rest. Material science has tried to find the ultimate source of creation very insufficiently, but it is a fact that there is one ultimate source of everything that be. The ultimate source is explained rationally and authoritatively in the beautiful Bhagavatam, or Srimad-Bhagavatam. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the transcendental science not only for knowing the ultimate source of everything, but also for knowing our relationship with Him and our duty towards perfection of human society on the basis of this perfect knowledge. It is a powerful reading matter in the Sanskrit language, and it is now rendered into English elaborately, so that simply by a careful reading one will know God perfectly well, so much so that the reader will be sufficiently educated to defend himself from the onslaught of atheists. Over and above this, the reader will be able to convert others to accept God as a concrete principle. Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with the definition of the ultimate source. It is a bona fide commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, Srila Vyasadeva. and gradually it develops into 9 cantos up to the highest state of God realization. The only qualification one needs to study this great book of transcendental knowledge is to proceed step by step cautiously and not jump forward haphazardly like with an ordinary book. It should be gone through chapter by chapter, one after another. The reading matter is so arranged with its original Sanskrit text, its English transliterations, synonyms, translation, and purports, so that one is sure to become a God-realized soul at the end of finishing the first 9 cantos. The 10th canto is distinct from the first 9 cantos because it deals directly with the transcendental activities of the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. One will be unable to capture the effects of the 10th canto without going through the first 9 cantos. The book is complete in 12 cantos, each independent, but it is good for all to read them in small installments, one after another. I must admit my frailties in presenting Srimad-Bhagavatam, but still I am hopeful of its good reception by the thinkers and leaders of society on the strength of the following statement of Srimad-Bhagavatam. I hope you're all ready for this. It's Sanskrit, but I'm not going to do it because I've never seen the verse before. But here's the translation. On the other hand, that literature which is full with descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, form, fame, pastimes of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a transcendental creation meant to bring about a revolution in the impious life of a misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though irregularly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Om Tat Sat! A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Delhi, December 15th, 1962. And this, reading this preface, everything Prabhupada says here is perfectly in keeping with what's going on now, 2021. What, like 60 years later or something? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hey, I'm Rabhavana Das. I'm starting to now just regularly take a break midday and start from the beginning of Bhagavatam. That's not the first time I've done this, but we're going to do it again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Each time it gets better and better, you know. It's like, because it's not a matter of like so much learning something and memorizing. It's more just relishing, you know. It's like, it is relish the Bhagavatam. And so if you're like that, you know, you can read it unlimited times. And every time you appreciate more and more. It gets sweeter and sweeter. So I just read the preface. And now in the introduction, Srila Prabhupada gives a brief summary of the life and activities of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, because that's how we approach Krishna. Because Krishna, you can offend Krishna. It's not a good idea, but you can do it. But Caitanya Mahaprabhu is not accepting offenses because he's come to deliver the most offensive, the most sinful, the most fallen in Kali Yuga. The ones that, you know, they try to practice, but they can hardly do anything, you know. They try to follow rules, they try to follow regulation. It's a real battle. And the social atmosphere is so disturbing. I mean, it's completely disturbing. Family structure is very difficult. Most difficult thing is just to have a little family, very difficult. So he's first giving us an introduction to Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who's come to help us and approach Krishna through the Bhagavatam. So I read a little bit of the introduction. The conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. The Srimad-Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There is no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as the controller, because the controller cannot be impersonal. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, is impersonal to some extent, but ultimately the chief executive head is a person, and the impersonal feature of government is subordinate to the personal feature. So without a doubt, wherever we refer to control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature. Because there are different controllers for different managerial positions, there may be many small gods. According to the Bhagavad Gita, any controller who has some specific extraordinary power is called a vibhuti-mat-sattva, or controller empowered by the Lord. There are many vibhuti-mat-sattvas, controllers, or gods with various specific powers. But the absolute truth is one without a second. The Srimad-Bhagavatam designates the absolute truth, or the summum bonum, as the Param Satyam. The author of Srimad-Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, first authors his respectful obeisances unto the Param Satyam, the absolute truth. And because the Param Satyam is the ultimate source of all energies, the Param Satyam is the Supreme Person. The gods or the controllers are undoubtedly persons, but the Param Satyam, from whom the gods derive powers of control, is the Supreme Person. The Sanskrit word Ishvara, controller, conveys the import of God. But the Supreme Person is called the Paramishvara, or the Supreme Ishvara. The Supreme Person, or Paramishvara, is the Supreme Conscious Personality, because he does not derive powers from any other source. He is supremely independent. In the Vedic literature, Brahma is described as the supreme god, or head of all other gods, like Indra, Chandra, Varuna, etc. But the Srimad-Bhagavatam confirms that even Brahma is not independent as far as his power and knowledge are concerned. He received knowledge in the form of the Vedas from the Supreme Person, who resides within the heart of every living being. That Supreme Personality knows everything directly and indirectly. Individual, infinitesimal persons who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality may know directly and indirectly everything about their bodies or external features. But the Supreme Personality knows everything about both his external and internal features. His meaning God's. The Param Satyam's external. The Parameshwara knows everything about his external features. The word Janmadhyasya suggests that the source of all production, maintenance, or destruction is the Supreme Conscious Person. That is interesting. I just remembering when these fire sacrifices are performed, like the one I'm familiar with is the initiation ceremony. There are brahmanas present who are reading and reciting while everything else is going on. And I believe they're situated like maybe 4 of them, something like that, one in each corner of the sacrificial where the fire is being, offerings are being made of the ghee and the bananas. And so the Brahmins, and you really can't hear them because there's so much going on. But they're reciting Hare Krishna, they're reading the Bhagavatam, they're reading, these different scriptures, and no one's really listening. But the sacrifice isn't complete unless the reading is going on. Or maybe some are listening, I don't know. But there's just so much activity going on during one of these sacrificial performances that people are caught up in other aspects of the sacrifice. But it's not complete without those Brahmins there reciting the Vedas. Hare Krishna. So I'll continue reading here. The words Janmad Yasya suggest that the source of all production, maintenance, or destruction is the same Supreme Conscious Person. Even in our present experience, we can know that nothing is generated from inert matter, but inert matter can be generated from a living entity. For instance, by contact with the living entity, the material body develops into a working machine. Men with a poor fund of knowledge mistake the bodily machinery to be the living being, but the fact is that the living being is the basis of the bodily machine. The bodily machine is useless as soon as the living spark is away from it. Similarly, the original source of all material energy is the Supreme Person. This fact is expressed in all the Vedic literature, and all the exponents of spiritual science have accepted this truth. The living force is called Brahman, and one of the greatest Acharya teachers, namely Sripad Shankaracharya, has preached that Brahman's substance, whereas the cosmic world is category, has preached that Brahman is substance, whereas cosmic world is category. The original source of all energies is the living force, and he is logically accepted as the Supreme Person. He is therefore conscious of everything, past, present, and future, and also of each and every corner of his manifestation, both material and spiritual. An imperfect living being does not even know what is happening within his own personal body. He eats his food, but he does not know how this food is transformed into energy or how it sustains his body. When a living being is perfect, he is aware of everything that happens. Hare Krishna. Wait a minute, what's wrong with my cuckoo? He's only supposed to do that 2 times. It's 2 o'clock. When a living being is perfect, he is aware of everything that happens. And since the Supreme Person is all perfect, it is quite natural that he knows everything in all detail. Consequently, the perfect personality is addressed in the Srimad-Bhagavatam as Vasudeva, or one who lives everywhere in full consciousness and in full possession of his complete energy. All of this is clearly explained in Srimad-Bhagavatam, and the reader has ample opportunities to study this critically. In the modern age, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad-Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It is easier to penetrate into the topics of Srimad-Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is imperative that one learn the Srimad-Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. The person Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad-Bhagavatam in practice. Since Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagavan and Bhagavatam in person and in sound. His process of approaching the Srimad-Bhagavatam is practical for all the people of the world. It was his wish that the Srimad-Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happened to take their birth in India. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is the science of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, of whom we have preliminary information from the text of Bhagavad Gita. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has said that anyone, regardless of what he is, who is well versed in the science of Krishna, Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. There is no need for the science of Krishna. There is a need for the science of Krishna in human society for the good of all suffering humanity of the world. And we simply request the leaders of all nations to pick up this science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of all the world's people. We simply request. So then the next section is a short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam, who taught by his own example and lived Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And in order to approach Bhagavatam, you have to approach Bhagavatam through the person Bhagavatam. So here we're approaching. Prabhupada's going to help us to approach Bhagavatam through Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna. Wow, that was fun. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.